Hello, EOB listeners. Welcome back to another podcast. And happy New Year's Eve. Soon we're going to be in 2019. Yay! So I took a break last weekend because, it's the holidays, Christmas and all, and I'm back on track. All right, so let's jump right in where I left off. Let's get right into the box office. All right, so coming in number one is Aquaman. It repeated at the first place. This is a movie that I said could open somewhere between 45 to 50 million because, I said, it is Aquaman, an untested character, and the star Jason Momoa wasn't that big of a draw because of his previous movies, right? But through the Justice League movies, he is kind of a known character right now, and I was excited for this movie because James Wan was directing it. Still, I temper my expectations. I said 45 to 50 million opening, and it did way better than my projections. The movie opened to about 67 million, way better than what I said it could do, and reviews are actually excellent for this movie, 64%, which is I believe better than the Justice League movies, and an A- cinema score. Second weekend, it only dropped about 23%, which is pretty low drop off for a superhero movie of this type, making Aquaman the movie to see this holiday season. Domestically, Aquaman has grossed 189 million, and let's see what it did worldwide. Worldwide is at 751 million, with 562 of that from overseas. So Aquaman is proving really good for Warner Brothers, especially for the DC Cinematic Universe. It gives out hope that with the exception of the Justice League movies, which were critically skewered, the individual characters movie like Aquaman and Wonder Woman did pretty well with critics. Again, credit go out to James Wan, who did really well with the Saw movies. He started with Saw, right? And then he did the Insidious movies, the Conjurings, and then he moved on to more commercial, mainstream with the Fast and Furious movie. And then now he got a superhero movie, Aquaman. Alright, let's move on to number two is Mary Poppins Return. It pulled in 28.3 million in the second weekend. It opened to 23.5 million, and I said the movie could probably do a 3-day 10 million for 3 days and 20 million for 5 days, but it did way better than that. It did 23 million 3 days, right? 5 days it did what? 5 days it did 32 million. So yeah, another movie that overperformed my projections. Reviews are pretty good, 78% at Rotten Tomatoes and an A- cinema score. Rob Marshall directed this movie. He did Into the Woods, On Stranger Tides, which is one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Chicago, which won an Oscar, right? And Memoirs of a Geisha, right? Emily Blunt stars as the title character. It's kind of like an updated take on the Mary Poppins movie with song and dance numbers, and it's proving to be a favorite with theater goers this holiday season. And in 2 weeks, Mary Poppins has crossed the $100 million barrier. Let's see, and worldwide, it's at 174 million, with 75 million of that from overseas. All right, number three is Bumblebee as the Transformer spin-off. I believe this takes place before the Transformer movies. Travis Knight directs, starring Haley Steinfeld. This movie that's focused on Bumblebee, I say the movie could probably pull in 35 to 40 million because the last Transformer movie did about there, except a bit more. And I said, this could probably pull in that much, except I was kind of off there as well. The movie opened only to about 22 million. After 2 weeks, the movie grossed 67 million, and worldwide it is at 157 million, with 90 million of that from overseas. And it looks like it hasn't opened that wide yet. Alright, let's move along to number four. It is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It pulled in about 18.8 million in its third weekend. There's actually no drop off. Actually, there's an increase from the previous weekend, about 14% increase for domestic total of 104 million. And worldwide, it is at 213 million with 109 of that from overseas. And number 5 is The Mule, the Clint Eastwood movie. It pulled in 12.2 million over the weekend. It actually increased in the box office from the previous week, about 28% increase with additional theaters. Domestically, it's at 61 million, and worldwide, it hasn't opened worldwide yet. But this is a movie that did surprisingly well. I said the movie could probably pull in 10 million. It opened to 17, and it's continues to do well at the box office. Maybe because it's the Clint Eastwood touch. All right, number 6 is one of the new movies that was released the last weekend, which is Vice. It's a movie about the former Vice President Dick Cheney, directed by Adam McKay and starring Christian Bale, who is in heavy prosthetics, and he kind of made to be look like the former Vice President. Amy Adams also stars, as well as Steve Carell, Sam Rockwell, Tyler Perry is here as well, Bill Pullman. So another movie that's doing surprisingly well. Review-wise, the movie is doing okay, has 64% on the tomato meter, but a C+ cinema score. Yeah, so for a movie about the former Vice President Dick Cheney, the movie, opened actually kind of about right there. I would probably put the movie at a 5 million or less open, but this movie actually did a little bit better with a 7.8 million open. All right, let's move on to number 7, which is Holmes and Watson. It pulled in about 7.4 million in its opening frame. This movie is one of the worst reviewed movie on Rotten Tomatoes at 8%. And a D+ cinema score, so critics and audience alike is trashing this movie, skewing this movie. It's directed by Ethan Coen and starring Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. Ralph Fiennes is also in this movie. This movie Holmes and Watson wants to be a throwback movie with the look and feel of movies from the 50s. And as the title suggests, it's about Sherlock Holmes and Watson. Poorly regarded movie, and 7.4 million opening is what this movie supposedly deserved, but the budget's only 42 million, so it doesn't have to do a lot of heavy lifting to make this money back. But it's kind of one of these rare misfires for comedy. Okay, number 8 is Second Act. It pulled in about 7.4 million in the second weekend. Domestic gross is 22 million. Worldwide is at 28 million, with 6 million of that from overseas. Okay, number 9 is Ralph Breaks the Internet. It pulled in 6.7 million in the sixth weekend, and increased of 43% from the previous weekend. Domestically is at 175 million, and worldwide it is at 350 million. At this point in time, the second movie is still behind the first movie in domestic gross and as well as worldwide, but we'll see if the movie can catch up to it. Alright, let's round out the top 10 with Dr. Seuss's The Grinch. It put in about 4.2 million in its 8th weekend, 50% drop off from the previous week. Domestic gross is 265 million, and worldwide it is at 469 million. Alright, so that's it for the top 10. Let's move on to the lone wide release this weekend. We're gonna have Escape Room. So this movie is directed by Adam Robitel, starring Deborah Ann Wall and Tyler Labine, among other people you probably haven't heard of. So it's a group of strangers that are rounded up to play a game where they're locked in these various scenarios, rooms, so to speak, and they have to find clues to escape it. And if they failed to do so, they probably die because there are various deadly traps in those said rooms. A very high concept movie, and I don't think the trailer did a good job of selling the movie because I frankly don't care about these characters. But there are fans of these movies, of people for for the Saw movies, etc., these concept movies, for people who want to watch how these characters handle these various situations. I said it's a new year and all, and horror movies typically do well, but but there's something about me and horror movies. I usually guess wrong on movies on these movies. So I think I'm gonna go with a 5 million open for Escape Room, mainly because it's not a well-known brand, starring people that you haven't heard of, and I think it's a tough sell in the climate where there are more high-profile movies to be seen. So 5 million opening for Escape Room. All right, that's it for this week's podcast. See you in 2019, everybody. Keep safe. Bye bye.